watching the Kate Fox Show. I'm Kate Fox, and I am here on Christopher Street in Greenwich Village, and we are here for the Stonewall Veterans Association 50th Annual Conference. As you know, this is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and there is a lot of stuff going on, a lot of controversial things actually regarding the Pride Parade, and who's being honored and who's not, and who is at Stonewall. So we're here today to support one of our own Stonewall veterans, so we hope you enjoy what we've got to show you.
I grew up out in Long Island, a very conservative, Republican-believing neighborhood and everything, and most of my life until I was 27 thought I'd be a dyed-in-the-wool criminal, and I'd grow up to be a disgusting human being if I allowed myself to be gay. So I was, and I'm actually bisexual, so I'm kind of torn for all these years. And I came back from Hong Kong, having had my first relationship for more than a night, and realized that it was okay to be gay, and decided to come to the Stonewall. My college roommate had shown me that about a month earlier, and I went in to celebrate coming out of the closet. And I came up from Wall Street, I was still in my three-piece suit, and bought my drink tickets, got a lousy gin and tonic. I still have the other ticket, by the way. And I'm in there in that room, looking at everybody, having a wonderful time. And I thought, my God, for 27 years, I was always looking at them. And now I am them. And I just got really warm and happy. I wasn't there to pick up anybody. I really didn't know anybody. And while I'm listening to the music that Wilson is mentioning, it was a great place. It was quite a scene. And then the lights came on, the cops came in, and the bus began. And, I just kept back, holding my drink, watching the scene. And the kids were shrieking and they were panicking. I don't know where they were going, but they were going in the restaurant, they were going all over the place trying to avoid police. The police had a lineup, they were checking IDs. And I'm just trying to make sense out of the whole thing. And somehow I had the courage to go over to one of the cops. I don't know who it was, for all I know it was Pine. But I said, what the hell are you doing? The Supreme Court has overturned the vagrancy laws. You do not have to show identification. You don't have to have identification. And he said, what the hell, are you a lawyer? Get out of here. And so he pushed me to the door, and shortly after they stopped doing this thing with the ID checks, and we were all in the street. The street was full of people, residents, onlookers, tourists, and there really wasn't anywhere to go. And I was standing there trying to make sense of the whole thing. And someone who I thought it was just a good-looking young guy. I have a feeling it was Storm A. I don't know. Storm B. It was a guy, there was a guy who was kind of an ethnic-looking fellow.
Drag King.
And he was up by the paddy wagons, and there was a tussle going on. I couldn't see very well, but there was this tussle going on, and he started shouting at us. He said, what's the matter with you people? I mean, you black man, white jack, black man, that kind of thing. And just about at that time, all hell broke loose, and people started pulling stuff out of the trash can. And then when we ran out of stuff to take out of the trash can, someone threw a trash can at the cops. They were in the club, as I remember. They stick their head out and yell at everybody to clear the streets or something like that. And they get pelted, and they go back and shut the door again. And this little routine kept going on, and we ran out of things to throw, so I'm pulling pocket change out, throwing pocket change, and anything you could find. And I think somebody, I don't know whether it was a piece of newspaper or whatever it was they lit, but somebody threw something that was flaming towards the door, maybe trying to get it in. But it was scary. I mean, for a guy who was just out of the closet, I was thinking, my God, and I watched this for about an hour and a half. They came down with the billy clubs going, and most of the people who were getting poked and hit were actually residents, and I think onlookers, which pissed off the whole neighborhood. So that was about the time when I think I better get myself out of there.
50 years ago, when Stonewall occurred, I was 6 years old. So I wasn't aware of what was going on in the world. But I guess that I've been lucky because I was raised, my mother and father were liberal Democrats. My grandfather and grandmother were conservative Republicans. And what do you get when you have these four people raising a young woman who had a physical disability? The answer is a liberal Republican, and that's what I am. And I'm a Lincoln Republican, and my parents taught me always that people are people, and love is love. And it doesn't matter who you love, just so long as you love. My grandfather taught me to work hard and make money and employ people, and that was his philosophy. But other than that, he didn't want to get involved in anybody's personal life. And so when I was 18 years old, I registered as a Republican, and I always was offended by my own party when it started to overreach into people's lives, because that's not what it was about. Republicanism was created so that people could be independent, people could be free, and people could prosper in the way that they felt they could move things forward. And so even now, while I am a vocal political person, I'm vocal about the things that this party once stood for, my party once stood for. And what that is individual liberty and the ability for people to live their life free of anyone demeaning them or government telling them that they can't. And I was one of the first people, I guess, as a Republican, to say that gay marriage was absolutely natural and it absolutely should have been something that was adopted. And as a matter of fact, it should have never been a question. You know, for the government to give a marriage license to two individuals, it doesn't matter what sex they are. It only matters that they want to form a partnership and they want to form a union. So for me, growing up with two kind of interesting points of view from two sets of parents, grandparents and parents, teaching me that the most important thing in everyone's life is respect for each other and support for each other to move the world forward and to move the economy forward. And so I'm here today to tell you why, I guess, I feel the way I do and why I am so grateful to these young people who were just trying to have fun, who were just trying to interact with each other in a place that they wanted to feel safe. And listen, think about it. They were teenagers and in their 20s. I mean, they were not 30 and 40-year-olds who had experienced the world. These were people, when we've all been there, right? When we're young and we want to have fun, we want to feel safe. And the day that all of you have the courage to stand up and say, no more. We will not go through this anymore. You do not have a right to tell us who to love. You do not have a right to tell us who to dance with. You do not have a right to treat us as if we are anything lesser than a human being and a citizen of this country. And so we won't do it anymore. And Anthony's story was beautiful because, you know, when I think, right, of the rebellion, I think of you all as grown, mature adults saying, we're going to take this political movement and we are going to make this stand and we're going to change the world. But we know that it didn't happen that way. It just was a set of circumstances where all of you wanted to be safe, all of you were committed to each other and committed to the ideal of being who you were and not having the world judge you in the negative. And so for that, I want to say to you, thank God for you. Thank God for your courage, because your courage was it changed the world. It changed the world, and we still have lots to do, right? This world still has a long way to go, because there are still so many people that are willing to judge and are willing to hate. But if we take your example and build on it, we can get to where we need to be in this world. And I thank you, I appreciate you. I'm a grandmother now, and I want my grandson to be able to know that he should stand up for what's right at all times. And what's right at all times is for everybody to be treated with love, respect, and dignity. And thank you for having me here, and thank you for letting me speak.
Is the person that Governor Andrew sent today, who we know, Aries de la Cruz.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and to address the Stonewall veterans on this very historic occasion. Don't really have a lot of prepared remarks, but what I wanted to say was that we can't ever apologize or undo the injustices that were visited upon the LGBT community 50 years ago, hundreds of years ago, even before that, even now. But what we can do is start today, and we can start by honoring and recognizing the memory and the legacy of everything that you have done. Something that I've always appreciated as an immigrant from another country, came here to the United States as a young boy, was that every time this country did something terrible in the past, we would put up a monument to remind ourselves that at one point we were wrong, but we were going to remember from that moment on that we were going to try to be different people. And so that's what things like the Stonewall National Monument is all about. That's what organizations like Stonewall Veterans Association is all about. And that's what, I think these are AIDS quilts. They speak to us from the dead of the time that the government failed us and failed our community. And so I'm here today to represent the governor and to present you with the proclamation. I also wanted to note, since we are talking about history, it's almost been 10 years since Senator Savino gave her incredible and moving speech about marriage equality on the floor of the Senate. I encourage you all to look it up on YouTube if you get the chance. And so I'm going to read not all of this proclamation since it's very lengthy, but I'm going to present you the citation now. Whereas the Stonewall Veterans Association is a community of individuals dedicated to preserving the legacy of those who were part of an event that helped shift our collective conscience and bring global focus upon the LGBT community. We honor and remember those who were directly and indirectly part of the Stonewall Uprising, who bravely stood up and called for a stop to violence and to the start of ideological awareness and understanding. They sparked the momentum for change within contemporary American society by awakening a sense of political and cultural awareness of the need for recognition of civil rights of the LGBTQ community. And we acknowledge their profound and lasting impact on our nation's social, political, and cultural landscape. Now, therefore, I, Andrew M. Cuomo, Governor of the State of New York, do hereby confer this special citation upon the Stonewall Veterans Association on the occasion of its 50th annual conference and reunion, and with profound respect and gratitude for its members' historic role in advancing freedom and equality for our state and our nation's LGBTQ communities, and for providing one powerful, unified voice for all throughout the world. Governor Andrew M. Cuomo.
I didn't have to admit I was gay, everyone knew it. But I was empowered to help people. That's important. I was empowered to help people. Some people ask, why don't you always come out? No, I'm empowered to help people. I'm empowered to make sure that whether you're white, or you're black, or you're gay, or you're straight, or whatever you are, that you have a fair opportunity to get employed and move up. In my family, we're property owners. We have the same attitude. Enough said, we don't care. In the 50s, I remember, we had a rental property, and there were two young ladies. We all knew they were lesbians, but there's nothing. They paid the rent. That's all that mattered. They took care of the place. That's all that mattered. So, I want you to move forward, find your place in society, and take that and exact what you need to do. Get done what you need to do. Don't let it pass you. And it can take 50 years. Is there anyone here who's young enough to live another 50 years? I see yours in the back. I see a few back there. Okay. I won't be here. Okay, but I hope you will be. Have a good night.
I'm not here just to talk about my experience at Stonewall. I've been fighting along with my publicist, Kelsey Jones and Wallalu and Mark Rosen. I've been fighting for a year. HOP, Heritage of Pride, New York City. And this is Stonewall 50. And it is the SVA is the mother organization of Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson, Stormy DeLave, and us. All members of SVA. And this rag paper journalist, who is a yellow journalist, HOP has enlisted them to further smear the SVA. And we were not invited to be grand marshals. Why? Because we didn't get enough votes. I mean, really? So as grand marshals, you have post-Stonewall GLF. You don't even have the GAA, who did more than the GLF could ever do. Much more. My friend Phil Rea, the head of the GAA, is coming in, and Judy Bowen. And it's a disrespect. And we have tried to reason with them. And so they went on the attack. Two people represent them. One is Julian Sangiove, and one is the publicist, James Valerino. Now, to give you an example, I am a poet laureate on Long Island of the LGBT community, and I was slated almost a year to read my Put the T First, a tribute to the transgender community, that in case I had another stroke, they would have it on record that their participation at Stonewall was strong. And so I went to the center. People told me he came from India, this young man, and so they said he wasn't here very long. And so when I saw him come to the desk, I asked the question, and mind you, my car was waiting on the busy street. Are you with HOP and are you Julian? Well, between him and a member of the GLF, Mark Siegel, who they both actually, with this Gay City paper, they actually printed out internal emails from the SVA and HOP. They made that public to this yellow journalist. And Mark Siegel from the GLF and the Dirty Bird and Julian said, nobody knows who Rusty Rose is, and they were really smearing me. But when I approached that desk, Julian said, oh my God, that's Rusty Rose.
From the SBA, watch out.
And so all I simply, and a long story short, all I simply asked was, why isn't the SVA a grand marshal? You know, this is a disrespect. And like a Stepford wife, he kept saying about votes, the vote, the vote. And then he went on to say, I'm working now. And I know he just walked up to the desk. And so he went running to HOP, and he sits on the director board there. And the next thing I know, I was pulled on the 28th from the rally to read my poem. And no matter what we do and try to make them reason that we are a part of history and that we should take our rightful place, after all, it is Stonewall 50, they refuse to budge, and there's not one person helping us. But there's also a documentary being made by Hudson Blue Productions, and with the New York City Police Department, the police that were actually at Stonewall. Well, suffice to say, my contribution to history is secured because my almost arresting officer, the minute he saw me, he went, "Oh my God, that's Rusty." And I was so grateful. We do not want the corporations and, you know, all that. So check out Reclaim Pride. They're going to be marching 9:30 in the morning on the 30th and meet at Sheridan Square. And also I want to say this. The same boy that did this to me, James Fallerino, who's the publicity for HOP, has the nerve to ask for an apology. And as far as I'm concerned, what he and HOP did to me is worse than any beating I took with a cop. And that's what I want to say. I and the SVA is owed an apology. Thank you.
State Senator from Staten Island and Southwest Brooklyn, Diane Jean Savino.
I had to use my middle name there, Wilson. Thank you. You know, I am truly honored to be the honorary chairwoman of the SVA. And it's an honor to know all of you. When you think about where we are now in terms of history, like Letitia, I was in kindergarten in 1969. I said the DA is here. So I think about how the world has changed so much. So obviously I wasn't thinking about the plight of the LGBT community when I was in kindergarten. In fact, nobody talked about the LGBT community. If there were people in your life that were gay or lesbian and your family knew about it, they talked about them in hushed whispers. No one talked about being gay or lesbian. Growing up I was in a Democratic family, like Letitia was, but more importantly, it was a Catholic family. You know, Catholics, we don't like to talk about anything, literally. But you didn't think about it because you weren't supposed to think about those things. But the 1960s, for those of you who were there, was a time of great social upheaval and rebellion for so many things. The women's movement, the civil rights movement, the college campuses were in a constant state of upheaval and protest to try and make the world a better place, the Vietnam War. So it was almost a natural extension that there would be a movement in the gay and lesbian community for social justice for themselves. And like most movements, they started in a messy, violent way. And that's what got the public's attention. And I know Wilson and Rusty talked a bit about what's happening with the heritage of Pride and how somehow people have a different recollection of what happened at Stonewall that night. And some people claim to have been there and probably weren't. Some of them might not even have been born then. And there's this new interpretation of Stonewall, the club. In fact, when I was driving down the street, there was a tour guide, had about 100 people in front of it giving a talk. I almost ran some of them over. I had to tell them to move out of the way. It's become a tourist attraction. And no one really thinks about the history of the club and what it meant to people. Are you safe and are you happy? Those are two really profound questions to ask a young person. Are you safe and are you happy? Because for a young gay, lesbian, transgender individual in 1969, being safe and happy was almost impossible. Where could you go where you wouldn't be outed? People were afraid to be outed at home, outed at work, outed in the street, just outed if you were in the military. By the way, that still exists today. But there was safe and happy. Didn't happen that often. So if you could find a place where you could just go and be yourself, and that's what Stonewall really meant. I think that's why the music is so important to this club. Because the music was a place you could just go and dance. By the way, you couldn't dance in a club then either, right? That's probably why the cops came looking for you over the cabaret laws.
They're what?
But being safe and happy and being able to express yourself like every other young person did in every other bar across the city of New York. That was it. But what you were all doing was starting another movement. So now I think through the prism of today. I grew up in an era where gay rights kind of moved slowly and incrementally through a very messy period. Just as people were starting to accept the idea of people being gay or lesbian, or we didn't call them transgender then. We didn't know what people were. They were transsexual, they were transvestites, they were, right, cross-dress, whatever. But it was a gradual acceptance that the gay community was here. And then the AIDS crisis hit. And suddenly everyone was afraid to be anywhere near it. I told Wilson, he asked me earlier, where were you before you got elected to the Senate? And I said, I was the vice president of the Social Service Employees Union, Local 371. It's the city's social service workforce, in HRA, in child welfare, the shelter system, it's the entire social service delivery system. And within that union, there was a young group of activists that recognized in the late 1980s, at the height of the AIDS epidemic, that there was a service delivery problem for people who suffered from HIV and AIDS. And they recommended the creation of what became the Division of AIDS Services in HRA, so that people who had AIDS would be able to come into a center and apply for benefits and not fear being ostracized from the rest of the welfare center. Because there was how do we treat people? There was such a concern for this population because we knew how vulnerable they were. This was before the cocktail drugs. This was before, the ability to be treated and live with HIV. It's the late 1980s. So with fits and starts, the LGBT community has become where they are today. And now I look at it through the prism of my niece. She's 13. She just graduated from 8th grade the other day. And she talks to me about things like her friends talk about, like who's non-binary and who's, hetero and who's, queer and who's not. And I just look at her and first of all, I don't even know what non-binary is, so maybe one of you can explain it to me. But there's an acceptance among young people today that we never could have had. So when you ask someone, are you safe and happy? They may be far more likely to really be safe and happy. And that's largely due to the work of people who started in places like Stonewall, who were willing to get their asses kicked and fight for their own life, for their own safeness and their own happiness. And then we in government have a responsibility to try and bend the arc of justice towards you as well. And we haven't always been that responsive. It took a long time to change laws, whether it be marriage equality. And by the way, that was almost easy because everybody likes marriage. Everybody wants to go to a wedding. Far more difficult was passing gender. We only passed it this year for the first time. Marriage was easy compared to gender. Gay trans panic defense, we passed the other day. The idea that you could claim that you killed somebody because you were afraid that they were gay and they may want to come on to you. In 2019, we passed that bill the other day and the governor's going to sign it into law. There are so many things in government that we still need to do to say to the LGBT community, we care that you are safe and happy, because we really do. And so what I would say to those of you who are here today, those of you who really were at Stonewall, your legacy is everlasting, but your work is never done. And I will be here, and I know Gail Brewer will be here, and Eric Gonzalez will be here, and Andrew Cuomo will be here, and I know Eric Adams is involved. We will be here to see to it that the truth is told about Stonewall, and that your work will never end, long after we're all gone. Because I don't think I'm going to live another 50 years either.
So I'm really happy to be here to help celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion, and I'd like to thank SVA for giving me the opportunity, a kid from Brooklyn, to come into Manhattan to say hello to our president is here, so I want to acknowledge her. I'm stalking through, I'm on my way back to Brooklyn, but it was important for me to be here to lend my voice and to lend my support. You see, for me, my obligation is to keep the people of Brooklyn safe. It's also to promote public trust. It was very especially a few years ago, that the gay community, the LGBT community, the trans community in particular, felt safe in Brooklyn. We were having terrible incidents of hate crimes in Brooklyn several years ago. There was actually a spike in hate crimes. Not unlike today, we're seeing a spike in hate crimes again, but a few years ago, it was very targeted towards the trans community in Brooklyn and mostly in Bushwick, and we needed to do something. And so when I got elected, and I just was elected in January of 2018, I had been serving as the acting DA the year before, after Ken Thompson passed. I created a new bureau in my office. So in Brooklyn, we have the first and only dedicated hate crimes bureau in the state of New York. We have very experienced prosecutors whose job it is to make sure that hate will be stomped out at the moment it shows its face. And while a lot of the conversation has been about anti-Semitic hate crimes in the borough of Brooklyn and in the country, there are a number of LGBT hate crimes that continue to happen in the county. It's the second largest category of hate crimes in Brooklyn. We've indicted many people, we've put many people in jail. We are making sure that anyone who would dare commit a hate crime is held accountable. And these hate crimes are sometimes not just perpetrated on LGBT members, but they're also perpetrated on people who they think might be gay or trans. And so we're also making sure that those cases are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That when someone attacks another person because of their perceived gender identity or their perceived caring of who they love, that we're going to take those cases very seriously. I'm also here because I want the LGBTQ community to understand that not only will I help keep the community safe, but that I'm a strong ally of the community in the sense that I believe, and I understand that it's my obligation as a leader of a big institution that people from various communities have leadership roles in my office. And so I make sure that I come back and say the very first person that I hired in my office was a gay woman who was the chief of my policy bureau. And I'm always encouraging every community that I go to make sure that people come and apply for positions in my office. I see my friend Keith here. It's something that I've mentioned to him and others that I believe that I have to make sure that I'm continuously sending the message that the Brooklyn DA's office will be inclusive and accepting of everyone, and that it's my obligation to go forward and recruit and bring people into the office. So I'm here for a lot of reasons, but I'm mostly here, Wilson, just to express that 50 years ago, I may not have been born yet, but the movement that started, the rebellion that took place, like every other civil rights issue that has come forth, has made our city and the country a better place. It's definitely made Brooklyn a better place, and I am grateful for all of those who put their bodies on the line to make sure that we could all live in a safe and free community. As our senator said, people have the right to feel safe and happy. I understand that it's part of my job is to make sure that that continues in Brooklyn and elsewhere. So thank you for having me. I have a citation that I'd asked to quick reflex. I have a citation for the Stonewall Veterans Association for the 50th anniversary event in recognition of invaluable service to the LGBTQ community. I congratulate you on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the 1969 Stonewall Rebellion. You have enriched and empowered lives through 50 years of community building, education, and the preservation of LGBTQ history, which is so important because as we've just been hearing, that history, it's not captured and recorded and repeated will be lost. So I commend the Stonewall Veterans Association for keeping the story and the spirit of the Stonewall Rebellion alive, and for your contributions to equality and safety in Brooklyn and throughout New York. As a district attorney, I thank you for your devotion to improving the lives of our residents. And it's signed by me.
I'm very honored to be here. I think Wilson knows what I like. There are many things to like about him, and many things you go, oh no, this Wilson. But I tell you what I love about him, and he knows this, is his writing. So I congratulate you once again, sir, because it is phenomenal, and it's a gift that not everybody has, so it's important. The second thing I want to mention, which you probably know when we talk about Bella Abzug, is that recently with Liz and Eve, we named a park in the near Hudson Yards in memory of Bella Abzug. And I thought it was going to be controversial at first because it's in the midst of Hudson Yards, but it was an area that her district covered. And the other good thing is, unlike a bridge or a street or a highway which already has a name, we know there's a long list of those, this never had another name. So that was also something that Liz, Abzug, and Eve were pleased about. So when you go to that park, which is in the West 30s, you'll see a big sign, Bella Abzug Park, and a history very condensed of this amazing woman, whom we miss every day, at least speaking for myself. She was very, very special to all of us. The second thing I just want to mention in terms of challenges and good and bad in terms of 2019, I think it's fantastic that the LGBTQAI community has had the following impact. I teach, and I have for many, many years at Hunter College, in addition to being the borough president. And I think it's fantastic, as Senator Savino indicated, that young people, number one on their list now is support for the LGBTQAI community. It's very wonderful, and it's very deep, and it's very real, and it's something that, thanks to the community 50 years later, has had a huge impact. I know that because when asked, this is the answer by young people, what they are most concerned about. They're concerned about gun control because friends die. And they're concerned about climate change. So those are also very high on their agenda. But I've listened for the last few years. I have been teaching for a very long time. So I just want to say that takes a lot of work to make sure that this is high on the young people's agenda, and that makes me even more hopeful about the future. So Gen Z or Gen X or whatever is the newest generation, they get it. And now the question is, can they carry out that particular getting it? But I think that the community has had a huge impact. The other challenge, and there's a little glimmer of hope, I work a lot with the schools. And I know if I go with some of the parents. There's a group called PFLAG, I don't know if you know it, but it's a group of parents. I often go to the schools with them. And particularly in the middle schools, you say, anybody got any questions? These are parents who identify themselves as parents of gay or lesbian children. And every hand goes up. And I go, oh my goodness, what happened to all the work and the teaching and the curriculum? I thought that these questions are being answered. Support, discussion, no. So what is really important, and the mayor did some, because we had so many press conferences, a culturally appropriate social worker in every single public school. Because if bullying is rampant, obviously with young people who are gay or lesbian, it's even more rampant, or trans. Yet at the same time, the college kids and the Gen Zs are getting it. They understand this, but the support is not there. And so I just say in 2019, you obviously know what's going on nationally. Thank goodness for the state senate, thank goodness for the assembly, for the governor, and for the efforts that are going on. But there's so much work that needs to be done with young people in terms of their support. If they get it, they need the support. So I just want to say anything we can do to even have more funding and more culturally appropriate social workers at every school, I think that would make a big difference. I also want to say something. I have a lot of friends who are part of the community at NYPD that is supportive of those officers who are in goals and in the fire department. And those two, I've had gone to a lot of events recently with both of them. I don't know if it's because of the 50th or just because they're getting larger and more vocal, but those are really important uniform presences, whether it's fire department or police department, because they're in the community, they are recruiting, thank goodness, and the community needs support. And the community needs support from people who look and act like them. And police and fire are often on the front line, and probably EMS also, but I'm not as familiar with them. So I just want to say it's another positive, but they need support often at NYPD and fire department. I'm often at their events and I see the challenges. I want to mention that in our office, I was really pleased that just recently, as you know, there was a landmarking of 6 LGBTQ sites approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. 5 of them are in Manhattan, the Gay Activist Alliance Firehouse, the Center, Cafe Chino, James Baldwin's Residence, the Women's Liberation Center, which is now a wonderful center for women learning construction, and Audre Lorde's house. And those are places, I'm a big, as you are, believer in memorials that are significant. These are what I would consider culturally significant. They're not necessarily the most beautiful home in the world, but boy, do they mean something in terms of our history. And it's so important to make sure that the next generation, I'm certainly not going to be here another 50 years. So it's so important for the next generation to know the history. If I had my way, I'd have plaques and information on a lot more homes, particularly in this community, because there's so much that happened. I was recently, just to gives you an example, honored by the Black Women's Military Organization. It was a huge honor for me. And the historian for the group stood up. And the first woman, World War I, African American in the military, when she died, they found out she was a man. And that's an example. We don't have that in the history books. We do not have our history. So while we don't have our history, these examples and many others need to be preserved. So we did support those. I'm glad that they were landmarked. And there's plenty of other places that should get the same designation. It's just always a challenge sometimes with Landmarks Preservation Commission. June 14th, I hope you knew about this. I don't know, we had a Pride Ball sponsored by our office at the Alhambra Ballroom in Harlem. And it was phenomenal because apparently it was the first time an elected official had ever sponsored a Pride Ball or anything like that. And we had a huge turnout, and it was I think we'll do it every year because people were so pleased to be participating. So I'm here. We will certainly be marching, as we always have. We're going to do the Queen Liberation and the Pride March. We're going to do both. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know how you're going to vote. But we are going to do both. We have hundreds of young people and friends who are going to be participating with us. Thank you, as always, for your support. And yes, I might not be here if it wasn't for Stonewall Veterans. Thank you very much.
About Stormy. Well, unlike everybody else, I was at the Stonewall by accident. A drag king named Vinny invited me, and that early day I was with Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. in Washington Square. And I was a musician and I was singing and everything, and then in the evening I went to the Night Owl. It was a record store. Oh, and about Stormy. Stormy, it is unclear whether or not she threw the first punch there because he never clarified that at the end. But
So this documentary, you will all hear about it because they'll have television commercials for it, and it features the Stonewall Veterans Association, and the IQK is mentioned too in it. And because there's a connection with Queen Alice in this documentary, which they unearthed rather recently. I'll have to forward you, Cindy, the picture She has two guys on each side of her. This is from like 50 years ago, 69. Yeah, tell her.
Queen Allison, it's been unearthed. Now, Queen Allison was at Stonewall. There are two cops flanking her, holding her by the arms, ripped dress. I've been saying that all along, and it's unearthed. And what others can't understand, and they are trying to prevent this documentary from coming through, they've been received flack. My account with my arresting officer, well, I almost got arrested but didn't, but he knew who I was,
So the picture has two uniformed cops on either side of her out in the street, one of the nights of the rebellion, not the first night. I know that because I was there. So this picture is quite stunning. I saw it and I turned it upside down because I couldn't realize it. This is very recent. This is about a week ago. So it's in the documentary, and because the police are involved, they got 3 original Stonewall cops who were in touch with SVA. If it wasn't for SVA, they would never know who these original Stonewall cops were. So they interviewed all 3 of them, and Rusty and Bert Kaufman. Did they interview Joni with this one with you, or you did the other one? You did the one for the ad agency. Yeah, a picture with Rusty and all 3 of these original Stonewall cops. And they interviewed me, and who else did they interview? Lee McManus, and and David Scott at one of our meetings. He's from Philadelphia. So when this comes out, it has a lot of never before published or informed information in it, especially about the '69 Stonewall car convertible. Because now they finally, after 50 years, found the records that the cops had the car for 3 nights and 2 days, as we've always said. And they have the testimony from the actual cops, including the one that ordered 2 other cops to drive the car away from the Stonewall Club that night at 2 in the morning, so it wouldn't get damaged. That was the reason. We thought they were trying to steal it, or worse, auction it off or something. So you're gonna, what I'm telling you is just like the tip of the iceberg. And they said some producers have seen it and they said it's dynamite. So they have the whole thing done. It's called Inside Stonewall. As soon as we know, yeah.
I just want to say the same. The officers we were fighting against are now the officers who are rescuing us from this revisionist history.
I say, take the vehicle permit,
Yeah,
go to the hot parade, just regular vehicle, and big sign, just telling them Stonewall veteran is missing from this parade.
Oh, that'd be a very good idea. Kelsey Jones, folks,
I'm going to
and
keep
her
this.
fiance, Wale.
I'm going to keep this rather brief. Originally, I was planning on doing a little speech, but first of all, I would like to acknowledge the Governor's Office, Senator Savino, Senator Molotakis, the esteemed council members, ladies and gentlemen, people of all genders, and everyone else in between, and members of the New York Daily News, Reuters, and the International News Service. So it's a great honor to be able to say a few words, so I'm going to keep it very brief. I just want to say that the impact of the events of June 28th and 29th, 1969 were felt not only in the state of New York, but the shockwaves were felt around the world. The young men and women who bravely and fought to end brutal oppression, policing of our bodies and our sexual orientations. Sure, they didn't realize at the time just how monumental our actions would prove to be in the quest for LGBT civil rights in the next 50 years to come. There's little doubt that progress has been made in many gains since the time following the events at Stonewall, but we continue to face political and social challenges to our hard-won rights that should have been afforded to us inalienably simply by virtue of being born. I would like to thank Mayor Cuomo and the legislature for what they did 2 days ago in ending the gay and trans panic legal defense in New York. So thank you for that. On behalf of the queer community, I thank you. There's still much work to do. As the death of a young trans woman of color, Lady Polanco, who died in a cell in Rikers only 3 weeks ago, she was incarcerated for not being able to afford $500 cash bail, proves
how much the scales of justice are tipped against the most marginalized in our queer community. Queer people of color, particularly, are still being beaten, raped, and viciously murdered for being who we are. Face enormous challenges finding employment and housing, and often end up having to fend for ourselves by any means necessary, leading people like Laylene to be criminalized and incarcerated for sex work. You can get high in New York now with the decriminalization of weed, but you still can't fuck for grocery money. That's not justice. While we must continue to work together on how we can address these challenges, it is important not to lose sight of where we are today and those whose hard work and dedication brought us to the point where we can have these conversations, namely the Stonewall Veterans. The Stonewall Veterans Association is the only group founded by and specifically for veterans of the Stonewall Rebellion, no matter race, orientation, creed, national origin. It is the group of civil rights icons Marsha Payne O'Mine Johnson, Sylvia Rivera's, Stormy DeLavery, and many other instrumental leaders in the fight for queer rights and the march towards the goal of equality. It is unconscionable that Heritage of Pride has chosen not to honor the SVA at the 50th anniversary Pride March. Their argument, based on a voting process, the number of people the group could muster to take to one of the meetings, is simply unacceptable. It is unacceptable that this was not communicated to the trailblazers you see in this room, who should automatically, right from the start, be given their place at the head of the march. Not doing so is akin to throwing a birthday party while excluding the guest of honor. Stonewall 50 is not about the heritage of pride. It's a heritage of shame. Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, Kelsey is the SBA's public relationist. And thanks for traveling so far.
Yes, my name is Rusty Rose. I am one of the trailblazers. I was at the Stonewall Inn on the night it was raided. I was inside the club. I feel very disheartened after this meeting because Heritage of Pride, New York City Pride, had not made us a grand marshal. They explained that we needed a vote. We didn't get votes, but this is Stonewall 50. We're the reason you're marching. So I'm very upset that for our 50th anniversary, that I'm not going to be in the front with everybody. And it's like a 50th birthday party. You're having the party, but you don't have the guest of honor. I want to say that I can't believe that I didn't know we were making history. I just can't believe that little fight at the Stonewall Inn led to all this. And that your heroes, not the ones who are dead, like Sylvia Rivera and Stormy DeLavery and Marsha Payne. What about the rest of us who are living? It may be my last chance to be at Pride. And if we're not unified, what's the sense of the 50th anniversary if I'm not present to wave to all these? I'm proud of the millennials and how it's the millennials that want to know, where is Rusty? Who is Rusty? And now I'm not going to be there for them. And even more than the GLF, the GAA with Phil Rea did a tremendous amount of work for our community. They're not being honored. But Stonewall 50 should be about pre-Stonewall, which is the Mattachines, the Lavender Woman. It should be about us who are at Stonewall. And it should be the post-Stonewall, which is the GLF, the GAA, the Lavender Menace. Everyone should be included. It's supposed to be a celebration of what we all did. Even the millennials who are trailblazing now should be taking that honor in the front. I'm not invited to my own party. I want to say that there is a documentary called Inside Blue. It is made by Hudson Blue Productions and the Stonewall Policemen. And it's a funny, it uncovered, they have uncovered records that nobody's seen. And it's going to show who was there, who wasn't there. And it's funny because the same police that we were rebelling against, because we were anti-establishment, my generation, and they represented the establishment, the same police we were fighting for our rights, you know, with that night, are the police that are now rescuing us. And I want to say about the apology that was given to James Fallerino, the publicity guy of HOP. He was the one also denied me and pulled me from the rally because I stuck up for the SVA. And he's taken all the bows from the commissioner with, oh, an apology. Well, I have news for you. We have accepted the apology, and we've been getting that apology since Stonewall. So that's nothing new to us.
Hi, you're watching the Kate Fox Show. I'm Kate Fox, and I am here with my friend and Stonewall veteran, Rusty Rose.
Hi, Kate. How you doing?
I am so glad to be here with you. I got to see you speak, and what did we do here today? What was the purpose of today?
The purpose of today was to say how Heritage of Pride, New York City Pride, is not honoring the Stonewall trailblazers who fought for their rights at Stonewall. We're being disregarded because of some vote that they had, and instead of us, they chose corporate TV shows and other things rather than honoring us at the anniversary Stonewall 50.
And now 50 years ago, you were there.
Yes, I was.
And all the people that I saw speak today that are veterans, they were there.
Yes.
They were at the place that really was the genesis for all of Pride.
Right, that's correct.
And so you're saying that you people,
right,
who are the reason that those people are marching are not included.
Exactly, all because of a vote. Why do Stonewall veterans, why do we need a vote? We're the pioneers, we're the trailblazers of the community. We shouldn't have to be voted upon.
And you shouldn't have to be voted upon because the first Pride March was why?
Because we fought for our rights at Stonewall. We said enough.
And so today you're standing here 50 years later and you're saying
enough. I'm standing here because this is an injustice. We belong, and the Stonewall car belongs as Grand Marshal in the front of that march. And by the way, it's never a parade, it's always a march for civil rights.
So now, I know you've had a long day. You and I are going to sit down.
Yes.
But if there's one thing you want to leave with from today and for what's going on this week, what do you want to say?
I want to say that Stonewall 50 is not going to be a happy occasion for me. And I want to say it's very sad that children, young people, millennials from all over the world who've come to see us will not see us. The only ones that will be remembered is my friends Sylvia Rivera and Marsha and Stormy, only because they died and now they're being revered. But a lot of us are still alive and kicking, and I'll be damned if I go down without a fight.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Kate. Thank you.
This is your pride, ladies and gentlemen, right here. Rita B. Rose, Rusty.
Thank you. Let me tell you real quick as I stand here. When I ran from the Stonewall that night, I ran going from the Stonewall up this way. And this, I believe, was the Village Voice paper. And on here were posters of like the Village Voice, the Village Voice. And he grabbed me, and this was all blocked off, and this was all horses, wooden horses.
Excuse me.
About, like around here, he grabbed me and picked me up and asked me what was my name and where did I belong. You know. And that was Officer Toscano. And look what it is.
Well, I just got goosebumps.
Look at this, what happened. Look at what we did. All these kids, all this celebration. Look at the officers, nice. Hello, officers. Thank you for being here. I'm Stonewall Veterans Association. And the NYPD is making a move, but we start doing it. not the one, because I know the officers, even though we were fighting this side, we have a respect for each other. And the same officers we were fighting against that night are the ones who arrested me, because the vision is a whole stronger for themselves. I'm going to have one stroke, and I tell them, if it's supposed to stand downstairs in front of them. They're not. So thank you. It's almost like Stonewall over here.
It's okay.
It's just like it's coming, it's like...
It's okay, we're here.
This here, I always say a cobble street, but this was kind of cobble, and I had moccasins on, and I was like going like this on it, The kids were all against that picket, and this store didn't look like this. This store had little holes in it.
I would love for y'all to go if y'all got ideas.
And the bar was on this side, and the dance floor was toward the back. That's the where we came in from. This door opened at a certain point. Bar was, we had to come in that door, and then this way was the bar, and way behind it was all the dance floor, and I sat with most of the transgender community, a black drag queen and a partner, the lesbian I was with, and lesbian couples. That's where we was. And then through that door, to the left was the coat room, and an office, and the bathrooms were in the middle. Now I'm gonna go, I haven't been in. And at the door, the guy, big bouncer said, "How's the day?" And we said, "Day."
Thank you.
Take your Fred out.
This is not the Stonewall I remember. But we were on this side. This is the true area where we fought, right here. Yeah, thank you for taking me, everyone.